All right, I'm showing 1:35, so probably good to get started. My name is Jim Forney. I'm moderating this session. This presentation is Do You EvalSys and will be presented by Christina Schwiebert. Christina is the Instructional Design and Distance Learning Coordinator at Northwest State Community College in Archbold, Ohio. She has a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, and a master's degree in learning design and technology from Purdue. At Northwest State, Christina helps instructors with course design and setting up their course site and provides all-around technical support for Sakai. So this is a birds of a feather session. All attendees were muted upon entry. However, I think we may want you to speak if this is a birds of the feather session. Anyway, to speak, you will need to unmute yourself as you're muted upon entry. I think a tip with Zoom is if you can hit the space bar, kind of like a walkie-talkie, and I think that'll unmute you, and then when you let go of the space bar, it will mute you again if you want to go that way. We also have the chat. You can enter questions at any time, and we could address them that way. I think as well. I can read them off. The session's being recorded and will also be available at a later time on the Sakai Virtual Conference YouTube channel. So with that, if you do have any problems with video or audio, enter a comment in the chat box. Or unless we're all experiencing that, I'm not sure what I'll do about it, but you know, we'll try to help. Anyway, welcome, Christina, and I guess we can get going.
Tech background. If it stops working, just exit, re-enter, turn it off, turn it back on. It all fixes everything.
Yep. Restarting, first rule of IT.
All right. Well, thank you guys all for coming. I'm hoping we can at least share some ideas and what we'd use the eval system for. See what works, what we like, what we don't like. Maybe you do something completely different than what I do. Maybe I do something completely different than what you do. And maybe what you do will fix all my problems, and maybe what I do will fix all yours. So, let me get, just to tell you, that's me. I'm Christina Schwiebert. The faculty and administrators here jokingly call me the Sakai Goddess, pretty much because if it touches Sakai, it's my responsibility. So we are a very small community college in rural Northwest Ohio. That's our lovely campus. What you can't see is all the cornfields that surround it. So we are out in the middle of absolute nowhere, but it's a good piece of nowhere. So I guess just to start out, we use the evaluation system for some individual program evaluations, mostly for our nursing program. They've created their own templates, they deploy the evaluations, and they collect the results and use that for their own internal evaluation and accreditation process. We use it for clinical instructor and site evaluations, again, mostly for the nursing program, making sure that the off-site instructors and clinical locations are meeting students' needs well. We do it for sort of one-time surveys. We had one that just finished about textbook costs and use. And then the college-wide course evaluations at the end of every semester. And those are the ones, I guess, that I really wanted to talk about today, because those are the ones that tend to be the most important for me and the most challenging. So with the college-wide course evaluations, what I do every semester is we make sure all of our classes have a Sakai course site. Even the ones that are purely face-to-face, they get a Sakai site. They may never publish it, they may use it only for gradebook, but it's there, it's in the system, there are students enrolled in it. We've got, we've worked with Longsight, we got the hierarchy created for the evaluation system. We've got it organized by term, division or college, and then subject within that. So we've got term, we've got the division like nursing, and then by subject, then we have the RN and the LPN, various subjects that we've got in there. We have a single evaluation template for all classes. We don't have different templates for online classes, face-to-face, web enhanced, any of those. And that was actually a fight to try to get one evaluation that'll work for every type of class. The Sakai administrator, aka me, deploys that evaluation to all the sites through that hierarchy. And then after it closes, I set it up that the instructors can view the results. I actually put a delay in there. That view after date is wonderful because then I can put a delay. I actually I like using that to set it up that the instructors can't view the results of the evaluations until after they have to have final grades into the registrar. And the evaluations close before those final grades come out. So it's sort of like a double guarantee. It's a guarantee to the instructors that the students can't give them a bad evaluation if their final grade is not what they expected. And it also helps protect the student that they can't claim the instructor gave them a bad grade in response for a mean evaluation. And then I get to compile all the individual responses and download all of those reports, and I send them to the heads of the various departments, and then they get to follow up with the instructors from there. So I guess now I want to hear from you guys. I see a lot in the chat how you guys are using evaluations and how that might be the same or different than what we're doing.
So Christina, you download and do all those, you have to do that downloading manually? Or
Yeah.
do you,
Me, click, scan to the next one, click, download, go to the next one, click, download.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, us too.
I do that as well, but fortunately we've been in a pilot with the evaluation system for like 6 or 7 years, and only doing it with like full professors. So I only have to do a handful of courses. If I was doing that across our entire course schedule, I think I'd jump out a window if I had one in my office. But yeah.
I have a very narrow window that I can't fit through, so that's what saves me.
Yeah.
But I pretty much dedicate a week to sitting there and doing that.
Yeah, that's probably what it would take, yeah.
Kathy, I see in your chat you said you've got multiple types of the evaluation templates.
Yeah, so basically we have we have 4 campuses, but only 2 campuses use the evaluation system because one campus insists on doing it paper. Basically each program, like the Department of Education or Department of Ministry, we have a master's degree program. Each program has a separate set of templates, and then within the programs, you may, like in one of the programs we have 3 different templates. So it depends on the type of course. Like we have a blended online course with intensive and a blended online course without intensive, and then an introductory one. We simplified that recently, but.
So do your instructors pick which template and deploy their own evaluation?
No, it's all done by the program directors or the administrators, and they work with us. Nobody but us, the 2 people, we only have 2 people, get access to that. And so they'll send us a spreadsheet. I luckily only have to do a few. But the other person does huge amounts, and basically they give a huge spreadsheet, and then the administrator has to say, okay, we want this template for these courses and that, and then when we send out the evaluation, we go in for that template and we mark all the courses for that particular template, right? And that gets sent out as one. So the number of actual evaluations to look at in the admin program is usually about a half a dozen or so, but it's hundreds of courses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried it. I get it, so it's just one, but it's all of them.
We use email notification reminders too.
I've been tempted to put it on the 5-minute one, even though it does say testing only.
Yeah, and the reason we have different ones is because the different administrators want different information, right, about the courses, about their program. They're looking at different things. And some of our programs are very, very different, like, because we're a Hebrew college. So some are rabbinics and some are doing cantorial work. So, you know, there's and then the program I support is a leadership program. So it's, you know, it's different kinds of questions you would ask.
Yeah, ours has pretty simple questions, things like, you know, was the instructor's communication clear? Did the learning activities contribute to, you know, your understanding? Did the amount of work in the class seem appropriate?
No, those are great. And we actually used to have, you went up a 25-question evaluation for our one program, and then they didn't understand why we didn't get a good response rate. So last year, we designed 11 questions for the non-intensive and an extra question about the intensive for the intensive style. So yeah, we're trying to simplify because people just don't want to answer that many questions.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. There was a question from Martin, or maybe more of a statement, or Martin, maybe you want on mic and talk about it. He said many of the LAMP consortium schools use the evaluation system. Does this mean we need to put some funding towards improving the system? I could certainly think of some improvements, and I don't know your thoughts. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong here. Was not the evaluation system started at Oxford? Is that correct or not correct? Was that kind of?
I don't think that's true.
Oh.
Is that Jim?
Yeah.
I think it was a group of 3 schools, one of which was Maryland. I couldn't tell you what the 3 were, but it had its genesis, and I want to say, oh goodness, Dave, Evelyn, do you remember when we went to Atlanta to the Sakai conference? This was, goodness, what would that have been? 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And yeah, there was some, yeah, I'm not exactly sure, Jim, but the bottom line is it was being talked about back then by a group of schools, and it really hasn't gone anywhere since then. And I, for one, am kind of chafe under the fact that it just seems to not be quite done. There's a few things that we need still yet.
I keep getting told it's a contrib tool and not part of the community.
Well, it is a contrib tool, but that only means that it has not proven itself to be, you know, robust enough to be in core. That doesn't mean it's not part of the community. It's part of the Sakai community. It's just not.
See, I was told differently.
Part.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, we were pretty much told it wasn't a part of the community, so we just limp along with its problems.
I feel like if a group of us got together and said, yes, but, and you know, started getting really specific about what it needs to have to be improved, we put some money behind it. It's probably been 2 or 3 years ago. One of our member schools, Brevard College, put some money behind fixing some just kind of nagging problems. But it didn't get at some of the more substantive problems, like what you all have been discussing. Downloading content is tough, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, the data is there. Just give us a way to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is I actually found a bug in its display, and I did report it to Longsight, and I ended up working around the bug because we couldn't get it fixed. So, yeah, and it was really simple. It was basic. I mean, I went and looked at the HTML code. It was basically when you tried to make a question be 16 point, because we had people who could not read the size, it would change it from a paragraph HTML code to an H5, which would make it huge, or an H4 or something. And it was like, why? Because it's not a header, it's a question. So I forget how I fixed it, but I did something different.
And unless we're doing something wrong in how our eval, we have one eval for our faculty. It doesn't support mobile particularly well. If they're on a full screen iPad, it's not bad. But
that was the other problem. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what we had to do is we had to, like, if we wanted a reasonably explanatory question, it would just overwrite the answers. So we always had to, like, change how we did the questions and the scales to get around that. And then, yes, no, it wouldn't work on mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say, this is Dave from Johnson University. One of the biggest strengths we love about EvalSys, the eval system, is just the ease with which it is to distribute to all of our constituents. So it's very easy for us to throw them out to courses, because a lot of times that's the way we do course evaluations. We do have questions on the course evaluations that deal with the instructor in terms of the course. We don't ask, did you like the instructor? We don't ask that. But the thing that we do love also is the fact that the reporting mechanism, while there is we distribute to hundreds of courses too, but we do love the fact that we can go through and download each of those PDF reports. And what you get to see in those PDF reports is, that data compiled in a way that's easy to consume. It's very easy for us to go through and even combine. So part of the way that we actually have the hierarchy built out on ours is we have 8 different schools, and so we actually go through and combine the dispersal of those evals. So we actually have one eval for online, one eval for face-to-face traditional schools, but then we also have that separated so that the schools that are a part of the School of Arts and Sciences, all their evals are in a single eval, but then we can look at those across the entire school. And so we can see for our deans and our program directors, they can see that at a glance. So how is my school performing? And so from a strength perspective, really, really, really love that.
Those PDF reports are very, very user-friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. So how do you have to organize your courses in order to get that kind of division?
Absolutely, we do.
Okay, so we wouldn't be able to do that.
And we actually have a school division system set up through delegated access that is mimicked right through there. Now, it is interesting because we do have some schools that actually offer, so for example, our Greek course is actually an arts and sciences course, but it's offered or staffed by a different school. And so that's a whole other different thing we don't have to necessarily deal with. We just have to know which school wants to see that data. And of course, we can always share it. But it has been really beneficial because our faculty, while they see it as a way to improve their courses potentially, or maybe potentially some way to hire someone else to teach the course, it's also a great way for our programs and our deans to see that information at a glance and say, okay, so they can look at that from year to year and see how are we doing. And so from a strength perspective, love that. And I don't know that we would be able to pay the same amount that we currently pay for the evaluation system for any other system and get that without having to go through a whole bunch of stumbling and a lot more cash. So there are some places where EvalSys could definitely be improved.
I have a question. So here's a problem we have, and so I really love to hear what you guys do. We do all our evaluations from the Sakai administrator account, which means the Sakai administrator account has to be an instructor in every course in order to get it so we can check that course off to send out the evaluation, which means our Sakai administrator gets hundreds and hundreds of courses, which hurts our performance when we log in as the administrator. I've thought of different ways to solve this, but I'd love to hear somebody else's best practice.
What we use is, as David was explaining, that hierarchy set up in the background. So from my account, which is an administrator, I can go in and I can deploy it to all of the sites within this group or this term or this college, and it goes out to all of them, and I don't have to be a member of everything.
Okay, so you basically are using a separate account?
I'm using my account, actually. But
I don't think I can get us to change our hierarchy, though. So
yeah, but that's what that hierarchy, that built in the back, that sort of background structure, is what lets us be able to deploy it to the entire college or the entire.
Yeah, we have enough trouble getting our load to work, and that's not Sakai's problem. Okay, just to be clear.
Kathy, I would also echo what she had to say, and part of this also predicated many, many years ago when we actually began to adopt and really make use of Sakai because we were manually creating all the course sites. And from a scales perspective, when it came down to me looking at my time as sort of an admin person here, it just came down to, we've got to somehow mechanize this. And the way it really actually sent huge ripples through our university, because it meant, okay, you all have to, you can't just use 3 characters if everybody else is using 4 characters in your course title designation or whatever it is. And so that propagated all the way to the point where several years ago, we actually, it's probably been about 4 years ago, our provost was actually like, don't we have an evaluation course thing inside of Sakai that we're already paying for and we're not using? I said, well, yeah, but you guys have been using the one that you bought. That's not Sakai specific. And so it was a great win for us when we moved, because we could now pester, in a sense, students to take those course evaluations directly from within the course management system that they were already familiar with.
Right. No, that's lovely. Yeah.
It's like, where is this? This takes me to SurveyMonkey or something. We wish we could. I wish I could get enough money out of our provost to say, hey, can you just throw some money at EvalSys? The problem is I don't know what that money would go for.
Right.
Well, let me just go into my next slide. I wanted to talk about my
oh, yes, please.
My couple pain points, because that seems to be what we've sort of segued into.
Oh, and I got one too, but go ahead with yours. I was just going to ask about a pain point, but
we have within a term, we've got we've got classes that are 16 weeks long. We've got classes that are the first 8 weeks, and we've got classes that are the second 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So for those 8-week flex classes, they want the evaluation for those first 8-week ones at the 8-week point. If you wait till 16 weeks, it's 8 weeks after that course ends, and the students forget everything, except for how much they hated the instructor.
Yeah.
So I go in and I find that list for the first 8-week classes, and I throw out the evals to those. And that's normally fairly easy. That's normally a fairly small number. But at the end, having to select all but those. I don't know if any of you guys have tried to do that, but you can't. It's not like a normal selection where you check the upper box and it checks all of them, and then you can uncheck the ones. It doesn't work that way. If you check the upper box,
that would be lovely.
That's it.
mm-hmm.
We could use that. Yes.
I would pretty much sell my soul for that ability right now. Because I just set up the 16-week eval, so I just did all that clicking yesterday.
Wow.
And then the downloading all of those individual reports. The instructors get to view their own, but for me to download a copy to save and give to the heads of each department, it's a lot of tedious clicking. David, yeah, I've had that timeout. I've had it be too where if I select too many individual ones, it just fails to select them. So I actually broke out this last set of evals into 3, because that's how many I discovered I had to find out how many boxes I could click before it would just stop.
Right.
It just took me to a blank screen.
It's a really frustrating thing, because you get through the point where you're doing it, you're almost to the end, you're almost finished, and then 3 or 4 more clicks and you're done, and yet it times out or something happens, and it's like, sorry, I lost my brain.
You click save, and it takes you to just a blank page, and it's all those selections are gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been that. So then,
well,
I was wanting to hear the other pain point. Someone else said they had another pain point they wanted to share.
Well, I don't know if this is a good one. I think it was me, and I ran into this the first year, and now I have to watch for it when I set up courses. We got to be careful here. We're close to the time here.
Yep.
But so maybe if this is a matter of like locking down what our faculty can do. But the first time we ran the eval, I'd gotten a message. And basically, some instructors had put their departmental secretaries in as instructors in their courses in order to upload readings and do some things. And of course, when the eval ran, it was evaluating, such and such department secretary as the instructor. And then, of course, I had to fix that. So, and I've set up another role, but I don't know if there's some way I could probably check this with Longsight, or do you have that ability locked out
Yeah.
Professors do that, or they just decide, well, they need the TA to have a little bit more rights, and God forbid they even have a student set in as an instructor, and you don't catch it. So
Yeah, we have permissions set so that so they can't do that.
okay.
We actually set up our evaluation so it's not instructor smart.
Yeah.
It just treats the whole thing like one evaluation, and it doesn't matter if there's 5 different instructors, they get the same set of questions. They don't get the set of questions for each instructor.
Oh, they do that at our school.
Yeah, that's what
They're
we
actually
do
big
too.
on that. Yeah. Because we do have some team taught courses, as probably everybody does here, and they want those all. Well, they have core questions. I love how the eval system accommodates this. It has core questions just specific to the course, and then you can put, instructor-based questions, and it asks those for every instructor role.
Yeah.
So what we
just
have
use
to do
the core only. We don't use the separate instructor ones, just to keep that from happening, because we have some who will put this instructor in just to help them get it set up, and I don't want to have to fight with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
So Kathy,
what we do in
sorry.
our instructions, and in the instructions at the top of the eval form, because we're for this one course where we're very highly customized, we actually say, if you're in course so-and-so with instructor such and such, or course this with that, so the student remembers what they're supposed to answer, because we're using the same evaluation. So yeah. And sometimes they mess up.
Does that mean that if there are 5 instructors listed in the course, then the students just sort of begin to understand that they're evaluating their, quote, primary instructor, or in some cases where it really is team taught, it's sort of they're evaluating the team, not the individual instructor, and that's
we
okay?
We expect them to evaluate the team.
Yeah, okay,
Ours are
that's
the
fair.
team, and then we have sort of an open-ended additional comments, and that's where normally they'll mention names and say, this one was good, this one was horrid.
Yeah.
Well, if I could throw something in here, Christina, that might be helpful. I have been, on behalf of the LAMP Consortium, exploring other options, and Dave knows about this because he's been involved in some of this. And he's right. The price of EvalSys is right. It's basically included.
Yeah.
Whereas anybody else wants, multiple thousands of dollars per year to do something that's similar. And what they don't have is what I'm going to learn to call deep linking, meaning they have access to the hierarchy, because a few minutes ago we were discussing how important that hierarchy is. And it really is. And if an external tool does not have access to that hierarchy, you're cutting off a major functionality of it. And so it seems to me we need to focus on that sort of thing. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Well, Martin, no, let me echo that quite a bit, primarily because the evaluation system we used to use prior to EvalSys, while we were paying extra money for it, it wasn't the top tier thing. We weren't doing anything like Qualtrics or anything else like that. But at the same time, essentially what we had to do is we sent out a blanket email to all students, and the email itself had essentially a link for all the courses we wanted evaluated, and the students had to go through and select the right link to the course that they were supposed to be taking. This is a huge problem.
That
because
opens up a whole lot of potential for abuse.
The students are like, oh yeah, I think I clicked on the right one, or yeah, I'm taking 4 classes and I think I clicked on 3. And from a feedback perspective, the data on the other end may be completely inaccurate. It's because the interface did not provide that direct one-to-one relationship and think of it. We're using this data to try and assess how we're doing, or passing it on to accrediting bodies. So I think within that framework, being able to throw some money toward EvalSys could really, really help everybody.
This is valuable to me to learn that the other people are using EvalSys similarly to the way we are, because we just thought we were a one-off.
We're all one-offs together.
Yeah, but that's true. But we can also
together.
get together and combine ideas, and
Do we know who all the schools are that happen to use EvalSys? Martin, do you know any of that information besides what you might know from the LAMP Consortium?
Could send that out to the Sakai list and maybe invite groups. I'd love to be a part of a Zoom call like this and learn more.
Well, since I know I've got just a couple minutes left, I just wanted to I've been making notes here. Things we agree are excellent about EvalSys is the cost included with Sakai, that hierarchy, and the PDF reports, which are so very readable, and the things that we wish we could fix, the mobile view, to try to download all of the individual PDF reports rather than click, 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 being able to select all and then unselect the ones you don't want, and that timeout failure when trying to select some. Is there any things that I missed?
There's a couple of tweaks to the presentation, which also could be folded into the mobile thing. That would be nice. But other than that, I think you got it.
Yeah, one of the things I actually had to do in the most recent dispersal of our evals was go in. We were using the color continuum of highly and low thing, and that particular framework, for whatever reason, just completely got broken up. I think it's displayed in a table somehow. With arrows, and I was like, oh my goodness! And in the last dispersal of evals, I think it may have completely messed up our data, partially because the arrows didn't really point to where they needed to on that continuum. So I went in and
I don't think that was a function of the colors. I think that was a function of it being like the stepped, because I know the last time we tried to use the stepped, it had that same problem with the arrows being completely off.
Right. But thankfully, there was an option in EvalSys already for me to actually make that modification.
Yeah, so maybe basically the presentation of the scales and things like that.
I never use the colored for the scales because we have an instructor who is 100% colorblind. He sees the entire world in grayscale. So trying to explain to him that, well, this end is green and that end is red.
Yeah, we don't use colors, but we do use a couple of things that we've had trouble with.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Maybe an integration with Rate My Professor.
There you go. Yeah. Or a link, and they don't get to see that link until they finish the evaluation. Hey, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate Christina stepping up and doing this. Thank you so very much. I look forward to even continued meetings like this.
Now, this is great.
I thank you guys all for coming. Like I said, this is something that's I've had to work with for a while. It's had some moments of frustration and a few moments of, this works great, but it's hard to get improvements to EvalSys because, as we pointed out, it's a contrib tool. It's not one that everyone's using and everyone cares about.
Yeah.
But those of us who do use it, it makes a big difference. So.
All right. Well, it looks like we're close to the time. Remember that the trivia contest is coming up, and I'm sure everyone wants to get a good seat in there before it starts. And remember,
I should probably get that started.
I don't know. Are you going to post your slides, or do you want to post some notes in the forum?
I'll post these slides and the notes. I didn't want to post the slides in advance because I was hoping to be able to steal a tablet from IT that would let me actually write notes into the slide and upload that, but that didn't work out. So.
All right, sounds good.
All right. And I will probably reach out to the list and maybe see if we can find a way to continue these conversations outside the conference.
Yeah, we should do that.
And at least maybe perhaps come up with some requests for improvements and see how much it would take to get EvalSys to be what we need it to be.
So I'm just excited to know that there are so many of you using EvalSys. We sort of felt like we were the only ones in the University of Limerick in Ireland. I wouldn't mind going to Ireland to work with them a little bit, but
Cool.
Yeah. I
So
felt the same.
Jim,
which
where
is
are
why
you?
I'm sorry?
Jim, where are you?
St. Lawrence University.
Oh, okay. You're at St. Lawrence, and Kathy's at Hebrew Union, and Christina's at Northwest
Ohio
State.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's, I didn't know that any of you were using it. That's great.
Yep. So at least we know we're not alone.
That's right.
All right.
I feel so much better.
All right. Well, thank you guys all very much.
Thank you, Christina.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.